the second person they produce and they say, this is Sangeeta. So I said, no, this is not Sangeeta. They produce some other people. And they tried to tell us this was them. And I said, no, I'm not, I know the students of my school, and this is not her. And so, the guy was really getting frustrated with us. And in the meantime, everything we were doing in the office, the police would go and tell the traffickers about it. And the traffickers are showing up in our girls' hostel and threatening our staff. So the wardens are crying, the teachers are crying, the office manager was boxed, which I was telling you about earlier. And there were car chases. There was actually an intern who's not here today, from America, Carmen Leah, who's not here right now, but she was actually in the middle of a car chase because one trafficker slapped our guard. We had one security guard who was like this thin guy, and just slapped him and went inside the hostel and took some of the girls back in the evening. So our staff, two of them, jumped into a car and chased him. One was Carmen and one was someone else who lives in India. And so it was all of this drama going on with no police protection at all, because they were really not interested in us in getting the girl back. So we get the second girl back. And now there's one more missing. And they're saying, oh, she's been trafficked to another state, to West Bengal. There's no way we can find her. It's got to do with the other state. I said, I know all the police officers in the other state. I will help you, but I'm not giving up. And in the meantime, I was invited to speak in the UN and different places. So I spoke about this case. And I said, there is Sangeeta and she's missing and she's been trafficked to another case, and the police has finally registered a case. And just 2 weeks ago, while I was in New York, I got a text message from my team members in Bihar saying Sangeeta has been rescued, she's back, and she's back in school. So this is the kind of danger, and this is the kind of
Okay, and then we'll open it up. One question and then we open it up for others. Okay.
So, and then I know others want to ask her too. That you know about our struggles at the grassroots level. You know that so many organizations in this very room are struggling against sex trafficking, the odds that we face, and how do you think we are going to change it, and when will it change? When will we see that it's finally tipped over?
Just a little question like that. That's a big question, and I mean, and you are part of the answer, a big part of the answer, and all the grassroots groups, and every time we inform women what untrustworthy invitations look like, and every time, everything is important, absolutely everything. But since it's a long-term question, I'll give it a long-term answer, which is we've constructed a view of sexuality based on gender, which is dominance and submission. And that means that a lot of men, I mean, we have to address demand in a deep sense, because by no means all men, actually I think that in this country anyway, the percentage of men who buy sex is something like 30 or so. I mean, it's not, it's by no means everybody, and it's important to say that. But have come to believe that their very sense of self, and especially sexual self, depends on dominance. So they buy dominance, and they actually are so dependent on dominance that if they can't get it from an adult, they get it from children. It's part of the reason, it is the reason I think that most young boys are not sexually abused by gay men, but by heterosexual men, because passivity or submission is sexualized to them, and so children are sexualized. So I think the long-term answer is changing the very gender roles themselves, so that, and from a positive point of view, eroticizing equality. I mean, I always say to groups,
let's start the movement. I love it.
no, because you can't beat something with nothing, and besides, besides that, sexual expression is part of all of us. So we need and want to eroticize equality, and I always say to audiences of men, listen, cooperation beats submission, trust me. So I really think that's the long-term answer. There are sub-answers too, because if you have been sexually abused as a young child, or if you've experienced pain as intertwined with love as a young child, then you may continue to think until you have a chance to dig it out, you know, that pain and pleasure or love are intertwined, and you can only get one with the other. You know, it's where sadomasochism comes from. You know, because nature tells us that what's good for us, it tells us by making it pleasurable, and tells us what's bad for us by pain. So it takes a lot of doing to intertwine those two things, and they're not so easy necessarily to unintertwine. And if you've been really sexually abused as a child, male or female, you may come to believe that's your only worth, and that's your only identity, or that's the only way you can relate to people, you know. So there's complexity here. But I would say that having sensible laws that, now our laws to punish the prostituted woman, not, more than the pimp, the trafficker, or the John. But having sensible laws and enforcing those laws are certainly short-term answers, and providing alternatives, because, it isn't like girls get up in the morning and say, here's my big dream, I want to be a prostitute. It's economic necessity. We have to make alternatives. But in the long term, there's really no answer, or the answer is humanizing the gender roles. Olaf Palme, I fear this, ignore that, it's embarrassing. Olaf Palme, who is was the chief of state of Sweden, he always said that the gender roles is, pay no attention, yes, whoever it is, I'm sorry, that the gender roles were the deepest cause of violence on earth, that all violence not in immediate self-defense was normalized and required by gender roles and the model of gender roles. And I think we know that now, and I think we're proceeding on. I feel a lot of hope about this. It's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. We're all here. It's not hopeless. And we understand what a huge problem it is, and we understand the economics of it, and we don't normalize it anymore, I hope. And even though some people still say there's always been prostitution and there always will be, we can show them plenty of cultures and societies in which that's not true, where men and women have equal power, and the gender roles are there for. The Native American cultures, 500 or 600 of them, didn't have prostitution. The original cultures, the Khoi and the San in Africa, the Dalits in India, I think that we know that it's a critical mass of people know that it's not inevitable, and we know the path. And it's going to be a long path, but we're going to stay on it.
Do people have questions? We have time for a few questions. Yes.
Answers. We could use answers.
Yes.
I don't have an answer, but I do have an inquiry, because I was very interested in that eroticizing equality. And maybe some of you have seen it in more detail. I only saw a coming attraction for a TV show or a movie about Svetlana. Has anybody seen? But it looks like this is a woman who runs a brothel and engages other Russian prostitutes, and they're powerful people. And that's why I don't know more about it, because my mind went numb at that point. But I think that this is a way of eroticizing equality in the most bizarre sense of that. So
that's romanticizing prostitution.
Yeah,
it's imagining that prostitutes are powerful, and that's very dangerous.
that's why I'm wondering
if
there's anything we can do about that kind of media craziness.
We certainly should complain about it. And actually, there's also on HBO, there's a show about, what's it called, the Mustang Ranch. It's not the Mustang Ranch, but it's something like the Mustang Ranch used to be, which is very falsified, right? It portrays it as unharmful.
Others? Questions? Right here. Yes.
But even in our own culture here about prostitution and how we're taught as young women, and although we think we've come a long way, baby, have we truly, and redefining what sensuality and sexuality is. And so how do we, as women here, teach that to our own children? And I can tell you that I work with young girls, and out of the 12 girls that I just did a empowerment with, and here in our culture, come from great families, and the mothers can only do so much, and the parents can only do so much. But out of those 12 girls, 5 of them were already raped before they were 16. 2 of them were cutting. One about the bully about Facebook because she was growing her breasts and part of the being a woman, and went across Facebook and told everybody that she was stuffing her bra and trying to take scissors to cut off her breasts. And so the question is, you know, as you're talking about the circle and creating the circle, is how do we, all these different organizations that are here, create circles instead of everyone having different organizations? Like, I want to know, how can I help your organization or what have you, and create our own circles here? And so I guess it's a question. It's kind of a wish, a desire, at the same time of asking for help. So I wanted to say thank you, because it's just fabulous what you're doing.
Well, and thank you for you know, working with those girls, because they, you know, we all do what we see, not what we're told, or at least more than what we're told. We do what we see. So we teach by our example, you know, and in little ways. You know, every time a woman passes a mirror and criticizes the way she looks, you know, a girl is watching. And you know, every time there's an assumption that you have to play the subordinate role, whether from the father or the mother, in order to be loved. It's, you know, I mean, we all have ways of teaching, big time. When I go to high schools, I certainly see what you're talking about, you know, no doubt. I mean, you know, girls are having breast implants as part of their Sweet 16, you know. Oral sex, girls are performing oral sex. We always end up having a really interesting discussion about what's in it for you. Large light bulbs go on about it. So, you know, I mean, I think we need to support. I mean, I want to support Ruchira and everything she's doing. I try to include this kind of discussion wherever I go, so that people feel okay. I mean, making people feel okay about telling the truth is big. And we can each do that in different ways, you know?